are brown and the sky is gray. I've been for a walk on a winter's day. I'd be safe and warm if I was an island. California dreaming, no, I'm searching when it's day. All the leaves are brown and the sky is gray. I've been for a walk on a winter's day.
What's up, everybody? Jinx, Pam, Indie Pam. No secret tonight. This guy is, we just say that with everybody we cover, and everybody we cover is a little bit different, right? But sadistic. I mean, this guy's something else. And of course, everyone that watches, I think, everything true crime, you kind of look for like a Delphi parallel. There's no connection here. No connection here. No tentacle, but some kind of parallel. And one of the parallels is this guy, not to say that this is the same thing with Delphi. I believe it is, but I don't have any proof of it. I think Richard Allen and his attorneys are like kind of full of shit. Maybe he saw the full discovery and says, oh man, or whatever the case may be. But this guy tried to act like he was old and decrepit and, didn't know what he was doing or what was going on. And there's video of him in his cell jumping off his top bunk and everything. So a total clown, really. And he's one of them guys, too, when you look back, like he's not one of those. You sit with Ed Kemper and he talked to him for an hour or 2 hours about life or, whatever the hell. This guy would creep you out. He would creep you out. A lot of neighbors said that, after the fact, hindsight's 2020. But anyways, so let's get into it. I have a couple recommendations for books or documentaries, things to watch to go along with this to help you, to expand on what I'm going to do tonight. Because I do these things for about an hour, probably hour, 10 minutes at the most. It's just like a skim coat. So what I'm thinking, moving forward here, and I'm going to wait a couple of days. I don't know about another poll coming up, but there's no shortage of serial killers. But the guys and gals that I've hit, really, don't know too much about any serial killer women. That'll have to be something I should do. Maybe that's a good thing for next week. But the people that I pretty much knew, I've kind of covered for the most part. There's a couple guys. Nobody wants to vote for Bundy or Gary Ridgway or the BTK. But that's okay. Maybe I put all three of them in a poll. Someone got to pick some of them. What's up, Brock? Ruckus is here. But anyways, it's a parallel. And so this guy did this. Gary DeAngelo did, or Gary, listen to me. Goodness gracious. Joe. Crazy Joe, his neighbors called him. Yeah, Indy Pam. I think something along those lines might have happened. I don't think he was nuts looking to me. A couple things that for Allen, we're talking about Richard Allen right now. His beard was his. I think the kids call it like your they say eyebrows or your sideburns are on fleek, so they were cut pretty well. Someone cut his beard, and it might have been straggly down here, but the shape of it, his nails were clean, his hands were clean. There was no scratches on him or anything like that. I think crazy people, not all crazy people have messy hands, but he has a little bit on his shirt, and there's like a garbage can right there. To me, that picture was like, these dudes didn't even try, but again, get them a psychological, do everything you have to do to make sure it's right. I'm fine with that. Move them, whatever these dudes want to do. If you have the evidence and you got them, then okay, whatever. You know what I mean? So make sure nothing can come back on you. So, Golden State Killer, right? Joseph James DeAngelo. He had many other names. We'll get to them as we go along here, as opposed to just laying them all out to you in front. Born November 8th, 1945. Something I was watching on another show. They do stuff like this, and they asked, does anyone have the same birth date as the serial killer that we're talking? So does anyone have November 8th birthday? If you do, you would win probably nothing. I don't know. I'll send you a baseball card. So he was a police officer and a mechanic. He was a police officer, a couple communities, police officer during his crime spree at the beginning point. There was a shoplifting incident, and it led to him losing his job later on. So it bizarre, but always had a power thing, huge power thing with this guy. Absolutely huge. I listened to a couple, Julie Cowley, I think her name's Cowley, was one former FBI behavioral analysis person that was in the BAU, and she said that the power with this guy was crazy. And once he got turned on to couples, he wanted the man, he wanted to, demasculate the man. That was really big for him, and he would always accomplish it first. But we'll get into that. So this guy's fascinating psychologically because he is just an outrageous maniac killer. And by maniac, I shouldn't, maybe maniac's not the right term. He's not running down the street naked. He's covering his tracks. He's purposely staging things in the apartment as a former police officer to make things lead to like, oh, this was a burglary. And maybe these people woke up and this guy was breaking in and taking their jewelry. And it wasn't like a sexual thing, but we'll get into that. But just fascinating. And he doesn't talk. He made 13 admissions of murder, 13 admissions of kidnapping, and he was tried. And I'll get to his sentencing. I have it written down. It's many lifetimes, and then they added 8 years at the end. It's like 6 life sentences plus 8 years. The 8 years was just a nice touch, I think. Just the ultimate. Hey man, fuck you. If you happen to live 6 lifetimes, then you got to serve 8 years after that. So hey. Yeah, Pam, one brain. I'd love to study is absolutely right. Bizarre. How do you get like this? There's different things that have happened or maybe didn't happen because he's full of shit on many different levels. But again, he doesn't talk that much. Oh my, we're doing Grateful Dead songs. Oh, hey. To each his own. Won't knock anybody for doing anything. You know what I do. I hardly drink, and weed is my medicine. I'm going to call it a drug. That's how I roll. But anyways, so actually I have 12 life sentences and no parole plus 8 years. Plus 8 years. That's pretty cool. That judge, that's maybe like, what's the absolute maximum amount of fucking seconds I could give this guy? And the 8 years must have been there. He probably couldn't have added 9 or 10. It had to be that 8 was like that. Somehow it was left over. I don't know. Jinx is a Dead fan. I like a couple of songs. I'm not really into them. I used to work with a guy years ago who was really into them. Them and Fish, big time. Anyways, so what was interesting about him is he was an Army brat, so he moved around. They were at an Air Force base in England, and he claimed to see his sister. He was, I believe, 9 or so at the time, and his sister was even younger. Claimed to have seen her raped by 2 airmen, American airmen in his barracks, and reported it to his dad, who was a higher up. Not like he was probably upper middle management. You know what I mean? Probably like he wasn't like a general or probably like a major, maybe like a lieutenant or something like that, somewhere in that situation. And he basically told everyone to shut up. This was, right after World War II, being born in force, probably 1952 or so, 53. Hush it up. We don't want anyone to know about this. He comes out and says it later. And I've heard people say his sister corroborated this, another sister, a younger sister who, I don't think was born yet. And but I can't find that anywhere. And again, DeAngelo doesn't talk. Remember we talked about Ed Kemper? Ed Kemper won't shut the fuck up. He just won't shut the fuck up. If anyone's into this, I've never done this, but I don't know. I don't think anything's weird or creepy necessarily, as long as you're not doing it with kids or animals and another consenting adult. You do whatever you want. But Ed Kemper is one of the guys that people would write letters to, and Ed Kemper would write letters back to a lot of people, like people he didn't know. And people would say they would get these long-winded letters from Ed Kemper, and he just liked to fucking talk. So if anyone ever wants to reach out and try to talk to somebody, Ed Kemper might be the guy to do that with. Remember what Ed Kemper did. We talked about that already. Let's not relive it. But anyways, interesting things that I wrote down, and these are my notes, like the notes that stuck out to me. These were the things before I went back and watched any extra data that I had in my head, mainly from books, things like that. A lot of the documentary stuff too. So while we're talking documentary and books, wonderful, absolutely wonderful book and documentary, HBO Max. I guess everything's HBO Max, right? And there's no HBO anymore. HBO Max has a documentary is called "I'll Be Gone in the Night." Okay, and you had Michelle McNamara, who's passed away. She died in her sleep, but she's the one that actually named him the Golden State Killer. She was a true crime writer, true crime author. She was married to a comedian named Patton Oswalt. Pretty funny guy, I guess. Really heartbreaking story. And if you watch that documentary, it's in there. And I highly recommend it. I'll Be Gone in the Night. And that's one of the things that this guy said. Verbiage was very big with this guy. The words he used was very big. The phrases meant a lot to him. He'd say, "I'll be gone in the night. I'll be gone in the dark. I'll be gone in the dark of night." Very much like Richard Ramirez would say things. And Richard Ramirez and Garrett, the Golden State Killer, are opposite ends of the spectrum. The Golden State Killer was a very much organized killer. Now, let me tell you some things the Golden State Killer did. And these were the things that came right out to me immediately, remembering. This guy would break in houses days before, okay? He would scout. I don't know. He would never say how long he'd scout. If he told the cops, they didn't let it out. He's never talked to any really in media or anybody. Never really even made a statement. He said, "I'm sorry" in court or some other weak ass shit. He kind of looked like Mumra, if you remember watching the Thundercats. If anyone's that age, Dave. If Dave's in here, where's Dave at? Dave would. That's a good reference he'd get. Or my buddy Arndt that I work with. He was like a mummy dude. Like, rrr. But anyways, he just, man, he was just, he's fascinating to me, but he's horrible all at the same time. So the police thing and the military thing was the scouting of these homes. And once they were able to put the stuff together, they'd find out he would go in people's houses. He would take bullets out of their guns. He would have his ligatures and his ropes. He'd hide them under couch cushions. He'd take light bulbs out of certain places, back porch or whatever, or any type of thing. There's Dave. I was just asking about you, Dave. So I put it in the ether, and there you were. I made a Thundercat reference, Dave. I said that Gary DeAngelo, or I keep calling him Gary. I don't know why. Joseph DeAngelo looks like Mumra now from the Thundercats. He was all crippled up and whatever it was. I don't even know, a skeleton of some sort. But that's my 80s reference for now. I'm sure there'll be more. But anyways, so other things that he did. He scouted these places out. He used flashlight, right? And Ruckus and other police officers will tell you that that's a tool that police officers use. So he would put flashlights in people's faces to wake them up. He would like stand there and he'd wake them up he'd put the flashlight in their faces. They woke up. And it was part of him seeing the fear. And that's a total control. Okay, now he controls you from the minute you open your eyes. You haven't been able to wake up. Your fight or flight hasn't had a chance to kick in. All you know is there's a flashlight in your face, and this guy, in most occasions, has a gun. And he's telling you got to do this, you got to do that. So that was another huge power trip to him. But it led them to believe it could have been a police officer. They thought it was military. A lot of investigators throughout the course of this investigation thought it was a military guy because he kept moving around. And once they were able to link everything up, this was even before DNA. This was just by MO, by things that he did. So he killed, 13 at least, and raped 50. But the rapes weren't able. California's statute of limitations was up on them. So none of those counted. But the 13 murders and the 13 kidnappings got him up to 12 life sentences plus 8 years with no parole. He'll never leave. He would bind people. And initially, he would attack women, and even if they had kids, single women. So this is where the media doesn't know what they were doing and didn't know what they were doing. And you're talking again, you're like 72, 1973. he began his killing spree a little bit later, like around 28 or 27. The profilers thought he'd be 18 to 21. They come to find out later he was way immature. Unknown what else his childhood was. If it's known to psychiatrists and maybe any FBI people or people he might have talked to, but it's not out there. So we don't know. We know that incident was brought up about supposedly seeing his sister attacked and essayed in that, hangar with them crazed military people. But that's all we have. So we don't know. So it's hard to do that, to even guess, but there has to be something there. And like the profiler I was listening to earlier was saying, mostly guys that do this, they hate women. Well, this guy hated men. He felt emasculated by men. So let me explain to you how this plays out, so how his MO changes just a little bit. And it can happen. But there was other things that never changed. They stayed vital. So things that this guy would do. He would get his victim. He'd always bind. And if it was a woman and children, he'd bind them both. He'd threaten, say, I'll cut your fingers off. I'll cut your ears off. Talking through clenched teeth. He'd threaten the kid just the same as the parent. Okay. Situations where there was a parent, maybe a mother and a daughter who was younger, he would rape the daughter, and he would stay in the house for a long, long time, for hours. So he scouted this out. He knew he'd have his time. And that was a power thing to him, staying there. So the media, and someone in the media basically calls him a coward. You only attack women that are alone. He then started attacking couples. And what he would do with the men was he would have the woman tie the man up, and then he'd tie the woman up. And he'd always go back and he'd tie the man up again, sometimes multiple times. So that right there is a signature, okay? He doesn't have to do that. He has him at gunpoint. He could tie the man up himself the first time. It was something about demasculating that man by having his wife tie him up at gunpoint. His own wife ties him up, and then he would say things, during the assaults about, oh, this is how your husband does it and this and that. So it really became about emasculating the men to him. That could go back a couple of things. They're just guesses. His exit from the police force, the shoplifting beef, and whatever else exactly happened. Again, nobody knows because he doesn't talk or say, excuse me, what exactly went down. He didn't do good with chain of command authority, which is all the police department, like the fire department is. It's the chain of command. He didn't do good. He had this, and he wasn't an alpha male. He was he wasn't effeminate, but he was a very a laid back, as far as he didn't try to take control or assertion that you would think. He would do it sneaky wise. He wasn't an upfront guy. He wouldn't really confront other people necessarily unless he was in a position of power. So if you were walking down the street and he was just carrying groceries or something, he wouldn't try to do anything to you unless he had a position of power, like in a policeman's uniform for those few years, or later on when he wakes up, someone's in their bed and he got a flashlight on him, and oh man, what's going on here? But this guy was a truly, truly sick individual. He really was. It's hard to say a whole lot about. I know I say that a lot, but this guy's evil. Evil's the best way to put this. All these guys are somewhat evil, but Kemper, they're mentally twisted. Bundy's a little bit bizarre, but Ridgway, these guys are mentally fucked from a young age for whatever reason you want to call it. Okay, but they are. So here's some funny facts about our friend Joseph James DeAngelo, the Golden State Killer. One of the things that linked him in these rapes was all the women saying this guy had a really tiny penis. So not only are you in jail for the rest of your life, everybody on the planet Earth knows, you got packing that 1/2-inch home wrecker. So that's one of the things that linked him together. And it wasn't like he had performance issues. Oh, he got it up as much as he could. He just didn't bring too much to the table. Not bad, Ruckus. I'm the union president, and they're going to hire 2 guys coming up. So looking for that to happen. Busy as usual, though. The guys today, I work yesterday, the guys today are getting beat up. I think they ran like 7 or 8 calls already today. all kinds of shit, wires down, wrecks, possible fire, this and that. It's just one of them days. And the weather's not really bad. Weather, it's chilly, but it's not bad. Yeah, you guys got big Dave and Frosty. I don't know if he's in here or not. Big draft coming up possibly for the Colts. Might get a quarterback. But okay. So some other things. He would talk really weird. And this is the first time I ever heard this was today doing research. And again, it's at Julie Cowley, I think. I'll link her page to my community page. I put some other shit up about him today. It's some good stuff if you want to go back and check it out or dig in and do your own research. It's always good to do your own research and find some stuff. Like I'll give you some pointers and then you go down the rabbit hole because you'll find shit out and you can tell me like, hey, do you know this? And I'll be like, oh, no way. You found like really? And it's just, it kind of gets more bizarre and bizarre as the more that you dig. You know, this isn't like Delphi or Flora Bizarre. This is just, this guy's evil. Okay. Paul Holes worked this case. Paul Holes was one of the main investigators. He gave a lot of interviews. So if you wanted to learn more about this, you can go on YouTube to Paul Holes, Golden State Killer. You know, Paul likes to talk. He's a very well-spoken guy. I like him. I don't think he's like a flim-flam man. I know some people believe that, but to me, he seems to be cool. But hey, you know, he definitely is very well-versed on this case and helped put him away. In his again, I wrote down some MO stuff. The scouting of the scenes, the leaving of tools, the going in house, breaking into houses before. So he's watched probably a minimum of 5 days, probably up to 2 weeks. He sat on these places, you know, as a police officer, he probably learned a little bit. He wasn't a cop that long, so I don't think he probably got into a lot of undercover work or anything like that, like some of these other guys have done, you know, that have channels. I don't know if Ruckus was undercover. He was jailing on the streets. Steve was True Crime Steve. I got my tea. Pam said that Paul Holes is working with Richard Allen's defense team. Is that a statement? Is that fact? I don't know. That's wild. Yeah, I don't know. That would be something else. I mean, that's a pretty reputable guy. I don't, you know, I'm not into, I don't listen to his podcasts or not. I like to listen to some of his interviews that he does because I'm interested in, you know, how they go about what they did. One of the things I shared on my community page is the DNA thing. And that's really good. He gets interviewed on that. I go back. It's a bit long, but if you have a chance in the next few days, go check it out. You know, it's very interesting. They talk about that whole process. But anyways, removing light bulbs. Okay, he would put dogs to sleep. So he would take these houses, and it's just another power thing. You had these big dogs in the 70s, right? People had guns and big dogs in the 70s. I don't know how prevalent an alarm system was. I was born 79. So I don't know how prevalent alarm system was in the 70s, but dogs and big guns are always thought. Somebody had, they had that big Saturday night special in the drawer. Someone comes in the house and you point that at someone, if they don't have a gun, they're going to shit their pants and run. If they have a gun, they better be quick because if you get one off anywhere near them, they're going to drop. Let's just say that. But so he would take these tasks on as almost as like a power thing. And I don't believe he ever taunted the police. There's poetry and there's letters and things like that. But police Ellie has said that none of that he could say that wasn't him. That was another guy. And the same person wrote these letters to the police during this crime spree and during when this was happening. And they know who this guy was. He was just some weirdo that was, I don't know, doing this for whatever reason. But the Golden State Killer did reach out to victims, previous victims that he's had. And he would say different things to them and just absolutely sick and demented. But it's his way of reliving the act. And some stuff was recorded. Some stuff wasn't recorded. But it ended up not catching them, the recordings. But you can listen to them. You can go back and listen. You can YouTube that too. Golden State. There's other people, serial killers. Richard Ramirez leaves one of the most haunting ones. If you ever want to look up Richard Ramirez answering machine message, not that he had an answering machine and said, "Hello, this is Richard Ramirez," and leave your number and I'll come kill you or anything like that. It was something he left on someone's machine. So he'd put, so early on, like I told you, I was saying before, I was beginning to mention, he'd put dishes against doors. He would lay dishes against doors. So if anyone would open up any door, certain doors, exterior doors, maybe people were in bedrooms, they were asleep, whatever the case may be, he would hear those dishes. So early on, when he's doing his, when he's the originally the Visalia ransacker, going into homes and ransacking and things like that, and then getting to the point where he would do it with people home. And what I learned in my journey with this true crime thing, since I really, really got into it, even before my YouTube page, maybe coming up on maybe 2 years now. It's really all it's been. But burglary is a precursor. That's like a sexually related crime, burglary. The only time it isn't, if you see like a smash and grab, like someone just is way on drugs or just drunk and they just throw like a brick through a plate glass window and they run in and grab a bunch of like sandwich meat and run out. So that's not sexually motivated. That's, booze inflicted, hunger and stupidity mixed. But so it because it's a very personal thing. You're going through these people's drawers. You're looking for things. You don't think if people have money, they're not going to have a lot of money on the counter or their dresser. You're going to open up their drawer. Hey, in their underwear drawer, I'm going to look through there. So that becomes a weird thing, whether people know it or not. One of the original things with Delphi is, again, we can't help but go back to that every chance we get, right? One of the things with Delphi was early on reporting that I saw, and I'd have to look this up and try to find it, I saw multiple reports of people on like kind of news shows and stuff like that, where they would link the news stories. There was burglaries going on. I'm not talking about the Ron Logan barn thing or anything like that. What I'm talking about is there was burglaries. People's houses were being broken into during the daytime when most people were at work. And not saying one has anything to do with the other, but it is that's the behavior. But anyways, that was something that I found interesting that I wanted to share with you guys. So that's a predecessor. Them serial burglars, it's a predecessor to what they did. And what this guy would do, there would be times where he would stage the crime scene, ransack stuff, but not take anything really of value. And he would take souvenirs. He would go through, he'd be there for hours, sometimes 3-4 hours in these houses. He'd eat their food. He'd hang out. He'd mumble to himself, which a lot of the people said, which was very bizarre. He'd talk through his teeth and he'd mumble to himself, and he'd be yelling to mama or something, and I don't think he would do that in those houses to fake it. But there was other times where he told people he was in the military. He actually told people, and I shit you not, I live in a van down by the river. He said this. So is that where Chris Farley got this from? How did he know that? Because that Saturday Night Live happened after this. I could share the interview that I had. This is the one of the former BAU lady, where he literally told a woman, I live in a van down by the river. I'm not making that up. The Golden State Killer said that craziness. It had to be before, right? What year was that Saturday Night Live with Farley? At the earliest, maybe 1990, think about it. I don't know. But that he did say that. So this guy he was clearly had a few screws loose. He wasn't insane. He wasn't criminally insane. He knew what he was doing. He didn't care about right and wrong. He's antisocial behavior, antisocial personality, which we talked about, which you can't do anything with. One of the correlations I'd like to make is The Sopranos. You guys watch The Sopranos. I'm a huge Sopranos mark. I watched the show probably 50 times, maybe more, the whole show. And Tony Soprano was anti-social personality disorder, okay? And basically what everyone said, the psychiatrists, professionals said, what Melfi did in the movie, not that she's a psychiatrist by any means, but she gave him the right advice. She did what she can do, but you can't treat that. So like these people, by the time they get to that point, they're fucked. I don't know what you can do for them. But this dude lived that life for, going on 70 years now, a little bit over 70 years. So these are all things he would do. The dogs. So he would go in there with these dogs, back to the dogs. He would somehow get these dogs to go to sleep or to not bark. And these were guard dogs. These dogs were known to bark at neighbors or whatever. They did their job. They let people know, hey, someone's walking past the house. Hey, someone, whatever. You know what I mean? So somehow he would do something and they would test these dogs, and what they would test for, they would never find anything. as a police officer, he would know what they test for. The theory is he was using prescription human drugs when they would test these dogs for like dog, medications. Someone give them like ketamine or ketamine or whatever, but he knew that. But it was another hurdle. It was another flex for him, basically, against the police. And again, I don't believe he ever reached out to the police personally. I don't believe that. I believe he reached out to victims, but I believe that those other things that were written in that poem, that was some kook, and law enforcement has said that. And then I believe them for certain, in a lot of instances, but for certain in this instance, I believe them. So that's my 2 cents on that. Later on, it was spree extended. This is when he became the killing. So he's jumped from the intruder. He was called the East Area Rapist. He was called the original Night Stalker, right? Remember Richard Ramirez? So they would use an anagram, and it would call him the EAR-ONS, the East Area Rapist, original Night Stalker. You could add the Visalia Ransacker, like I told you. And there were some other names. So there was these attacks going on, and they would give these attacks different names. This guy would move all around. He would change his appearance, mustache, no mustache. And everything had this big, giant chin of his. He had like this big, like cartoon-looking chin. So it always gave him away. But he would like change. And you look back at the mugshots, not the mugshots, but the sketches, and we know that sketches are sketches, and they are not a picture, right? We all know that. We've heard that a few dozen times, right? But they look right on. It's funny to look back, but they never knew to look at him. You know what I mean? So it was a little bit, past bizarre kind of. Here's another murder that he didn't admit to. They have no proof on it. And I'm going to read it to you because it was a law enforcement officer that he knew and he had worked with. And the thought process is that he killed this guy because this guy caught on to him about 2 murders, supposedly in particular. Let me find it, the right one. Oh, I saved so much stuff and I didn't save it in order. We'll just hit it out when I get there. All right. So they called him at one point the Cordova cat burglar because there was crimes on Cordova. The Exeter ransacker. He was an Exeter police officer. He was also an Auburn police officer, Auburn, California. We'll get to that part later. Yeah, again, he would take the weirdest things, the things that, so back then, and you're talking like the early 70s type stuff, right? So your early 70s, they weren't putting 2 and 2 together at that point, not yet anyway. So it would be hard for them. The profiling stuff was just starting. There was no, we understand this or understand that. So I can't blame him there. You got to give law enforcement a little bit off of that. But he was taking trophies. That's what he was taking. He was taking the stuff that had sentimental value, that had names on it. And if you tried to pawn it, yeah, it would be maybe worth something. But so we talked about that. I'm just going to make sure I hit all my everything here. Yeah, there was initially 2 people. There was a husband and wife that were walking their dog, and they saw him like kind of in a backyard. Now he was doing something. So whether he was coming out of the house, he wasn't sure what they saw, and he actually ran him down and shot him. Then of course you had the detective, and I'm going to make sure we have the right Detective William McGovern was on a stakeout inside the garage. He had attempted, so he sees this guy who entered the backyard of a house. This will be 1505 West Colwith Avenue, near where the ransacker had been reported to frequent. Detective William McGowan on a stakeout inside the garage. He tried to grab him. The suspect shrieked, and then he began to he had him at gunpoint. He began to say he was taking his mask off, but instead of taking his mask off with the other hand, he pulled the gun and he fired and he hit the detective twice. If I'm not mistaken here, jumped another house, and basically he got away there. Yeah, he was got him twice. It was just yeah. So basically, but his modus operandi and his signatures, that's what linked everything. So he's going up and down the coast, Sacramento. He's the East Area Rapist, and the early Night Stalker when he moves back south. So he just does this stuff, and the guy's just kind of all over California, and he ends up working for, it was like a grocery chain as a mechanic. So he was able to move, and even before then, as a mechanic, you can find work anywhere, especially at that time in the 70s. And apparently he was a pretty good mechanic from all accounts. I mean, he's a murdering piece of shit, but he was good with a wrench. So, yeah, Jinx, Scooby Doo. I wear this to the dispensary all the time, and they was, oh, we like your shirt. Again, I told you I was born 79, so those cartoons were the big. That was like really big for me. Scooby Doo around that age. I think it was always on, like in the morning or after school or whatever it was, but the original episodes, the good ones. Anyways, so we'll cover this up again. So he's in the San Joaquin Valley later on. They call him the Visalia Ransacker. He moved to Sacramento. He becomes the East Area Rapist. His MO linked in different attacks in Stockton, Modesto, and Santa Barbara County, and then in Orange County. And like I told you, he had 50 rapes. But they were able to link these very distinct things he did with these dishes. The knots, they called him the diamond knot killer too, because of this exquisite type knot that he used. So all these things were very easy to put together, but they couldn't find who he was. There was no DNA testing back then. There was DNA that they found later, obviously, on things from the scene and stuff like that, but they couldn't test it. They didn't know what fingerprints was kind of still in the infancy. It was getting better, but it wasn't really, anything like it is now, or anything even in the late 90s and 2000s when it really began to database and inventory. So, so when he gets arrested too, I know I'm kind of jumping around, but I want to talk about the psychological angle of him now at this point. So when he gets arrested, he's in a room. He knows the room's filmed, right? So he's talking, oh, Jerry pushed him out, and I pushed Jerry out and lived a happy life. He made me do these things, as if he's talking about a split personality. Jerry, I know that a lot of people believe him on that. I personally don't. Now, I can't find video of him actually saying it. I'd love to hear it. But just the way that he carries himself and approach, I think he knows exactly what's going on. I think the final fuck you that he's going to give, not necessarily us. I mean, we're just curious, but the families, the final fuck you is, I'm not telling you nothing. I still own that power. And that's the last thing he owns, because he doesn't get to pick when he eats or what he eats or when he goes to the bathroom or takes a shower. That for the rest of his life, forever long his miserable life lasts, he's told what to do. But this one last thing is, and he's a miserable fuck. So he's not a personable person. So he's just, I ain't talking to anybody, piss on. I was going to walk around and be miserable and die of hate one day. Hate to be this guy, but hopefully sooner than later. He certainly listened to the media, right? So there was a guy, and they're pretty sure, which really cool. If you want to have like a little project to do, go back and look up the town meetings that were happening during this time. Police are pretty sure he's there. Now, he hasn't said that, but people I've seen on YouTube blowing up pictures and looking and trying to see what he looks like. I haven't tried to blow up the pictures, but just look for that giant, damn robot chin that he has. So that's a little contest, like things the people were doing. Oh, I've seen him here. So we knew since back then that these guys would go to things like this. So they had these, and what they would do is they would have them at different places. So these killers were all linked. So they'd have one up north. They'd have one down in Santa Barbara, up north of Sacramento, have one maybe in the LA area or something like that. And where the bodies were turning up and where he was killing people at. And they would look for someone that was the same in all those different not rallies, but like information sessions or town hall meetings. Because that's what these dudes, they can't stay away. So if they found someone with all three, they never ended up putting it together. That way, they never ended up putting it together. So they had to move on. They called him out for attacking females only. This was the media. That's when I told you he went right to the guys after that. That's when he became with the couple, which he specifically picked the couple. It wasn't like BTK's first kill where he went home and expected mom and a 12-year-old girl, and the whole family was home, including a former master sergeant. This was he explicit. So he's listening to the media, so he's talking back to him. Oh yeah, well look what I did here. And then I think that he realized that's the ultimate power trip. So now he can exact his whatever he doesn't have on women, doesn't like about women, he can project that on the women. But his real problem was with men. Real problems with men. Whether it was his dad, has to have something to go back to do with his dad, work-related stuff, things like that. It just made him break, made him lose his shit. So he hates the men, so he has the mom or wife ties up the man. Then he goes back and does it again, but like demasculates the male, if you will. So I think that's what he's doing there for sure. In my opinion, I most people agree. It's not just my opinion. Like I said, where are we at? He was certainly inadequate. That was one of the big things that the profilers say: inadequate. He felt absolutely inadequate. Inadequate as a man. What's inadequate as a man? What are things that men do? Not to sound like some caveman guy or anything like that, but primarily, men are strong. They're, they provide, they, make children. They do that. They do this, they do that. And they do these things. And he felt like for whatever reason, he was demasculated at a very, very young age, Floor question. 100% no. Not 100%. No. By that, Dave, and I know there was accelerant hit in that back mudroom, right? We kind of I'll leave that. I think we've kind of not officially released from LE, right? But I mean, it's, to me, I've seen enough. I know I have friends that would say, well, no, that's not officially released. Well, I get it. You're right. But I think we could go with it. Or maybe an arson that was attempted to make look electrical. Maybe an arson, possibly. We're not saying who did it or motives or theories. We're saying about it itself. It's hard for me to get past that accelerant in that mudroom where everybody's kind of like, the investigators that actually know what the fuck they're talking about, not the Randalls would say, so that's tough for me. No, you can ask Dave. I mean, you have a show with me or, a lot of other people meow, you're going to ask a floor question. That's not a problem. I don't know, Dave. I've been racking my brain too, but until I would see every single picture that they took, the computer model test, everything like that, then I could say 100%. I feel confident that mudroom, that had to have some kind of, accelerant's a tricky term though. Accelerant's not always gasoline or something like that, but it's the most common, some kind of, they pour something there, but I don't know. Maybe we'll come back to that one day and an accelerant will mean something different, but it'll be something that shouldn't be there. Pam thinks arson for insurance. I know a lot of people think that. In my situation, what I've seen at work is the professionals, we call them pros, professional torches, they don't do it when people are home, because if they do a good job, no one's going to figure out what happened. But if there's some kind of death or destruction, electrical fires are our most common type of fires. Electrical and arson here are the two most common. Most of our arsons are abandoned buildings, but back to what Pam was saying, in my experience, the professionals don't want anybody home because they don't want a murder investigation. They just want that payout, or, and those are usually bigger buildings. So there usually isn't people there. And people that say, hey, I have a rental property, I want to burn it. they make sure nobody's there. I've never seen that happen where people were there. So I've asked people, no one could really give me a definitive answer. And again, you never know what people are thinking, but did people think they were away? Right? Because her dad was away. Someone think they were away? I'll say this. I don't think it was anyone that was in that house that night that we know about. That was there visiting, in my opinion. I don't know everything the law enforcement knows, but in my opinion, and a lot of it has to do with the statements that Dave made about it. You know, we know you didn't try to kill those girls, and and it's just put that piece out. You know, Doug, put the piece out. Just say what it is, because maybe somebody, one of us assholes out here, might be like, wait a minute. Let me go back to this thing I wrote down 6 months ago in a notebook. I don't know where the fuck I put it, but once I find it, and it's like one of them, holy shit, you know what I mean? Here, call it in. I don't want any credit for it. I don't want any money for it, but go get this dude now. If you want to do something, arrest him, take a picture, and send it to my phone so I can share it with everyone. That's all. But I don't know. We're going to keep grinding on it, though. Thank you, Jinx. Oh, I just had my 21-year anniversary. Never a dull day in my job. So I'm in year 22. Anyways, let's knock out the rest of this crazy ass Golden State Killer. Okay. I'll talk about Flora a little bit at the end too. I promise you. So you got into the couple. So basically, he's like the fake alpha male. That's a term I made up. He's not really an alpha male, but he wants to proceed or project like, you know what I mean? One of those guys. He stayed for prolonged periods of time. It was all about his gratification. The ultimate power was securing the man with a rope, his wife making him secure him. And he's clearly an organized killer. We talked about that before. Very sadistic, was very much into torture as far as scaring people. He wasn't necessarily like a gotcha type here and there. He would do his thing, and if he would kill people, he would just kill them. But the mental, the scaring, you know what I mean? Like he got off on that. This was a diabolical dude. You know what I mean? He was a diabolical, sick fucking guy. No, well, it was appraised a few months earlier, and I think we could confirm that the appraisal was a lot more than it. Maybe then, no offense, but maybe then a whole block should have been appraised at. I'm not a realtor. And of course, everyone knows who appraised it. And they're like, well, that's another link. Well, I'm not saying it's a link or not. It's a small town. It's weird. I'll give you that. Okay. It's bizarre. But the more and more I'm learning, and remember, guys, I'm not from a small town. Pam, that's possible. But there's people there leading up to that night, and I would think that if somebody like went past or even did the least amount of due diligence anyone can do, they would know that someone was in there that night. Like, I think that the noises were being made, people were still moving around. Obviously, the girls were in bed, but Galen was up. There was people in and out, hanging out. I don't think anything like, I'm not saying anything nefarious or anything like that was going on, but just people being people, hanging out. And I don't believe any of them had anything to do with it. I really don't. Again, I don't have anything our law enforcement knows, but it's the appraisal thing is hard. You can't knock that down, right? So I have like a theories and stuff like that. And then I try to like eliminate different things or test my theory and try to disprove it. That's one of the things that I went after. I said, to me, this isn't an insurance job. This is just me personally from my experience. They're not going to do this with girls. It's not insurance. I just totally wiped it out. And I tried to disprove it. And I've tried to disprove it. And I can't disprove it. I cannot disprove that this was not an insurance thing. And they didn't think anyone was home. I just need that information. Like, who would know that? Who would be able to say that? Galen wouldn't know what other people knew. Like, wouldn't someone come and just like explain this shit? I don't know how many people follow me, but I put stuff in my videos, and I'll say it again here. Man, reach out. If you're a fireman that night, if you did everything you could do, if you busted your ass and you had to eat some shit for the last 7 years because you thought you were doing the right thing for your guys, You're not. You're just not. You need to do the right thing for you. And the right thing for you is coming forward. So, you know, uh, again, DeAngelo, just and crazily and just horrible person. Ultimate power, 13 murders, 13 kidnappings. He's spending his time at Old Corcoran, California State Prison there. I'll be going in the dark. So the FBI lady that was talking to Detective Jolie or Special Agent Jolie there was saying that they should have released a lot more information sooner. So about 2018, they get this profile, the DNA, and they start working it. And that genealogy video that I have, the genealogical DNA on my page, explains it so much better than I could even begin to. But basically, they had DNA from the murders, so they were able to go on these genealogy sites and find who was close to it. They found like his great-great-great-grandparents, right? They had a tree that was built out, had a 25 different trees and 1,000 family members. And they had to work back and they had to find out all the way down. And they found like a second or third cousin. And then there was between him and another relative. And by where they lived, they were able to eliminate the other guy basically. And actually, the other guy gave up some DNA too. I take that back. But they kind of knew going in. And DeAngelo, everyone, we always hear that they had the Kleenex. They did, but before that, they followed him to a store, like a Hobby Lobby or some shit you didn't think he would go to, and they got something off his door handle too. Now I don't know. I never really found out, or it was never explained why they get the door handle and then they have to get the tissue out of the garbage of his house. But they find it's him. They arrest him, and this dude will rot in prison, and he'll die in prison. The end. Richard. Or Joseph James DeAngelo. I'm going to keep calling him Richard and Gerald. I have GSK up here, I think, throwing me off on my notes, so maybe that's it. But I hope you learned something tonight about the Golden State Killer, and especially lethal and deadly and just terrible human being. I posted a couple of videos. I hope I gave you a couple of things if you want to chase down more. Again, I'll be gone in the dark. Michelle McNamara, the book and the documentary. I think there's probably at least the trailer on YouTube, but I think it's on HBO Max if you want to go watch it. It is phenomenal. A very sad story. She passed away in her sleep a few years back before they actually arrested him. Gary, look at this goddamn G. I'm gonna have to erase it. Joseph, before they arrested Joseph, but she gave him the name the Golden State Killer. So they thought that basically, just to summarize this, they thought that all these people were different serial killers operating at the same time. Now, California in the 70s for serial killers was off the fucking hook, right? They were all over the place. But these 4 or 5 different serial killers were actually one guy. And as the police and the law enforcement learned more, and at that time they were dealing with more and more craziness, they were learning things. They were learning how these guys operated. They were able to put all this together. And, the Zodiac was going on just before and right around this time. And you had, Kemper. There was so much going on in California. It was absolutely nuts in the 70s for the serial killers. New York had quite a few a little bit later in the late 70s and early 80s. But anyways, that's what's going on there. And he's going to rot. The guy's absolutely going to rot. So, run down the rabbit holes, anything else. The guy never talks. So it's hard to even, to develop like from my wannabe profiler thing and to say, well, mom, this to me, dad something here. Maybe mom didn't do anything, but dad did something to him. He embarrassed him. I don't think it was physical beatings. It was something worse. That's just a guess. I don't know. And we might never find out. But again, I think that gets his ultimate fuck you. That's his ultimate power trip. I'm going to take this to the grave with me. So anyways, Flora, a lot of good people still pushing Flora. Keep putting the pressure on. Everyone doesn't always get along in every topic and every issue, but people's hearts are in the right place. People keep pushing forward. I think that's the most important thing for everyone to do. There's so many creators that I really learned to love and care about on here, and I'm still going to love and care about all of them. And when they have shows, if they want me on, I'm on. I like to have them on mine. But everyone just keep that train moving forward because it's moving forward. And again, I've heard other people say about moving the bodies. Oh, well, that's they were in bag. Well, first, I hope they were in some kind of bags. If they weren't in bags, I might, I don't know. I might just drive out to Indiana and just like Hulk smash like the street. I don't know. That to me would be the craziest of the craziest shit that we've heard so far. I assume they were moved in some kind of medical situation, or I would assume they were put in some kind of bag. But let me tell you this, as a first responder, as a fireman that has witnessed, the bodies, some of them you bring in your work, and the people that are worked there most of the time leave the scene. What our medics do is they take them from the scene to a hospital. So if there's any chance of them being alive, they're going to the hospital, unless they're visibly deceased. Then they won't do that. And they'll keep them at the scene for as long as they need to till they do the investigation. They're not going to move them to another place. The only time that they move people to other places is in Indiana, the temporary morgue law, right? State of emergency. You saw it in Katrina. There was just dead people everywhere. It was horrible. They couldn't just leave them in the street. You try to find something dignified, but also something out of the way. That's what you're looking for there. That's what that emergency rule is for. So not even talking the dignity of these 4 girls, but the investigative just fucking snafu that moving them bodies, whoever made that decision, you can't explain that away to me. No cop, no fireman, nobody. You can't. That's horseshit. I know better than that. I've done it for 21 years. If we would attempt some shit like that, they would put handcuffs on us and would say, what the fuck are you guys doing? You guys are, no, there's no excuse. Oh, we're not doing it for this. We're not doing it. I don't care if they're in body bags. You put them on a Florida fire station. What do you move them in? We don't even know what you move them in. But listen, when you're talking to people and you talk about Flora, press that issue. If any of you talk to the media people, press that. Explain that to me, because I'll debate anybody, anywhere, any place on that. There's no way that you can ever explain that. You can't. It's bullshit. And if someone, I had an idea. No, that's not a fucking idea. That's one of the worst. It can't be explained. You can't move it. So let's say you have them outside and you've worked them. They said they've worked a couple of the girls, which means they attempted CPR. So they had reason to believe they were alive, whether they were breathing or whether they thought, hey, let's give it a try. That person's in play. That person could be alive. At that point, the only way you could pronounce that person or call that person dead is by like a doctor or basically a nurse. I don't even know if a nurse can. I think a nurse can at the scene. Maybe someone here knows. Obviously, a doctor can. What our medics do is they'll call in and they'll talk to a doctor and they'll put the heart monitor on them too. Unless it's obvious, like a decapitation or decomposition. But this wasn't the case. They just worked her. They tried to, at least 2 of the girls, they tried to perform CPR. They said, you're not zipping them up in a bag and taking them from any crime scene. Let me be clear. You're not taking dead bodies of anyone. Okay? Anyone, whether they were there for a minute or for a year. You're not even putting a bunch of bones in a bag. None of that. At any point in time, in any city or any state in this country. And if anyone tells you otherwise, I hate to say it, but they are full of shit. That doesn't happen. That's the most insane thing about the whole Flora case. I can't get past it. I'm not even talking about the moral, should we treat bodies with respect? I'm talking about investigatory. Who authorized that? They need to go, they need to go to prison for that. Prison. Now, don't get mad at me if I'm going to think, well, everyone's in on it. I don't think it's a 10-way conspiracy. Might be a 5-way conspiracy, though. There's some bullshit that goes on for sure, but there's nobody convincing me on that. You're just not. That's the most outrageous shit. And I mean, ask a cop or a fireman, and there's one house fire. It's not a flooding situation. This isn't let's say like in situations where someone's like in a SWAT situation and one of the family members get killed. and like they're on the front porch, you go they could grab the body, get that person out of there. Situation like that. Yeah, that can happen. That's not this situation. That house, the fire's out. It's not going anywhere. You're in a big fucking hurry to sweep everything up and get out of there for whatever reason and declare some shit that wasn't done with science. How do you expect me not to think that they were moved if it wasn't some kind of inside work or going on? You know, show me something that it wasn't. And that'd be the only thing. If I ever had the opportunity to ask Doug Carter one question, I'd be like, explain that to me. And who made that call? And what if he tells me, why aren't they in handcuffs? Why weren't they charged? They're not a cop, I hope, or a paramedic or a fireman anymore. Like, who made that call? Someone find that out for me, because we can't find that out because they won't release it. They won't release the communications. So at some point, someone had to communicate on a radio something about them moving them bodies to the fire station. I almost guarantee you, I can't guarantee 100%, 99%, that communication, something went across the radio that I'll be able to hear and say, oh, that's, they're calling for this, or they say the bus or this or that. You know what I mean? There's different names or terms that you can use. You know, we have code 0, which means the person's clearly deceased, but that's what we use here. So I don't know. I'll keep pounding that goddamn flora for as long as it takes. I think we're going to get resolved. I really believe that. I really, really believe that. I don't know if it has anything to do with Delphi or not. It's possible. And if people say that it does, I ain't mad at you, because there's a lot of weird shit. I can't explain it away. If I had something I could explain away, I would say, oh, yeah, that didn't happen, or that's that. But I don't know. I don't think it is, but goodness gracious, if it was, I wouldn't be surprised. Who knows out there? I would have to say no, but not a very confident no for me. So I'm getting ready to get out of here. I thank everyone that came in tonight, talked. Hopefully we learned a little bit about old Joseph James DeAngelo, the Golden State Killer, and his other 20 names. You're never going to get to see him see the light of air again, because like I said, he has 12 life sentences, no parole, plus 8 years as a special. 8 years, like I said, was a special fuck you, Joe, at the very end. So, and the Flora talk, which is inevitable. I'll talk floors, you know, I don't have a problem with it. Any other people, I know other people have asked, have me on. Work schedules and things don't always work out, but I'm available. I'll go up on a podium and hit it for the floor any day. So please let me know, everybody. Thanks to everybody. Pam, Jinx, Dave, Ruckus. Who else was in here? Who else was in here tonight? Anyone that watches this on a replay. If anyone has any questions on anything, you know, my email, kevlar148@hotmail.com. It's on my page too. Or you could just leave a comment here. I always come back and I try to answer as many as I can. So if anyone has anything for me, that's my email, kevlar148@hotmail.com, floor related or otherwise. I look at everything everybody sends me. Some things I can help you with, some things I can't, but oh yeah. I'm writing that down, Jinx, because you know what? Last time you told me that, and of course, as soon as my thing's over, as soon as the show's over, you can't read the comments. Like the comments go off for a while. I don't even know at what time or what point. So I was going to go look, and then I forgot about it, and I never went back and looked. So I will go right now. I have it right here. You can see it or not. Yep. I'll go on. Thank you, everybody. Jinx, I'm going to ask you to be a moderator one day when I have more than like 7 or 8 people in my chat. It'll come. Yeah. I'll you know what? I'll check him out tonight here. Yeah, I'm going to do some little bit of stuff tonight. There's a couple of things I have to watch. A couple interesting videos I heard last night. I didn't get to catch up on. Caught a little bit of Rick Snay this afternoon. Got to ask a question I wanted to ask him about Leaker. And he basically said, yeah, you know, it's basically a lot of it just horse shit. So I was interested in that. But anyways, I will definitely check that out. And thanks for everybody. Hope everyone has a good Tuesday night. Weather's starting to get a little bit better here. It was sunny today. And we got a little bit of a chilly week. But I think it was like 39 last night or 38. Like, dude, this needs to end, right? arthritis weather, it is not. So I will tell everyone thanks, stay safe, be nice. Everyone be nice to each other, and have fun on YouTube. Don't get into any too deep rabbit holes because they're hard to get out of sometimes. So we learned tonight about the Golden State Killer. We won't see him again because he's a sick fuck locked away forever. And keep pounding the Flora thing. Anybody that you listen to or creators, hey, we're looking for a case, tell them Flora. Once you tell them details, they won't believe you. They're going to have to send them a link or a video, send them one of mine or send them one of Meow's or whoever else's, Frosty, Ruckus, all those guys, Kristen, a lot of people have a lot of good content, and be like, oh shit, this is crazy. And then they're hooked on it. And then we have another soldier in the Army. So as long as we got soldiers in the Army, the fight goes on for Galen and them girls, right? All right, everybody. Thank you. And I will talk to you soon. And that's about it. So I will say, Coach Kev, out.